Hello. 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 Cool. Hi, Marty. Lisa, for screen sharing, where is that button? Because I am not seeing it. Oh, never mind. Just found it. Of course, as soon as I ask. Awesome. We'll give folks a couple minutes to hop in. And I think I'm going to have to keep it in this view. Yeah, I would say it more so is just I can't see chat and things, so I'm trying to multitask. Yeah, it's fine. We'll call it what it is. All right, I will go ahead and get started. And while I do that, I'm going to pull this up on my desktop so that I can see the chat. So first, I will introduce myself. Or Lisa, are you introducing me? I forget. There we go.
Okay. Hey, everybody. All right. So I'm going to serve as your all's volunteer moderator for this session. So welcome to Art Introduction to NACURH, which is going to be presented to us by Shane. Shane is the art coordinator for the NACURH region, and so I'm trusting that they know what they're talking about. If you all would like to pose any questions to Shane, you can use two options. So currently there's the chat function that is open on the right side of the screen. But there is also a Q&A section. So if you post a question into there, Shane will be able to see it and answer it either through text or just in speaking as a response option there. We ask that you hold off on your questions until Shane makes it clear that it is time for questions. Or if you post a question in the chat, don't be mad if they don't get to it right away. At the end, I'll come back on and I'll remind you all to complete the evaluation. This particular session will not be eligible for Best of AMO, but it will be eligible for Top 6. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Shane. I didn't want to mess up your last name, so I didn't say it. I'm sorry.
You're good. I would say, fun fact, my last name is the same as Whoopi Goldberg's character's name in Star Trek, so it's Guinan. Because the Irish like to follow no normal vowel sounds. We just like to make it up as we go.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Cool. So my desktop does not want me to be in here as well, so I'm gonna go with it. Usually art sessions are pretty interactive, so I'm gonna keep the Q&A and chat just kind of open on the side. So if you do have stuff, feel free to plop it in there. And the sessions usually go about an hour. As Lisa said, my name is Shane, and I use he, him pronouns. I serve as the Assistant Director for Leadership and Social Justice here at CU Boulder. And as Lisa said, I am also serving now as our NACURH Art Coordinator. So I'm going to spend a brief moment just talking about art first and foremost. And I'm going to go into this presentation. So I know that I can see Marty is here. I know, Marty, you have some idea of what art is. I believe Shamaya, if I'm saying it wrong, feel free to let me know that too. But to go over art pretty briefly, it is NACURH's advisor training. So it formerly was called Advisor Resource Training. It currently is being rebranded to Advisor Retention and Training. And there's going to be some different development that's happening as a part of that program over the course of the next year or so. I am also noticing that these captions are not popping up, so I'm going to fix that really quick. And then let's see if they start going. Cool. And within the art program, there's about 20 or so different sessions within two different levels. So there is level 1 and level 2. And those really just are representative of kind of your campus level at level 1, and then interacting with the NACURH level advising in level 2. And that does help. I appreciate it. I love pronunciation guides. So within this time, I'm going to talk a little bit about obviously NACURH and what it is as an organization. And so these sessions mainly are for our advisors, but also really this is a good one that's open to anybody who's just interested in learning more about student leadership and what this organization is. So I'll talk through that. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about the actual art database. So we do track who has attended different sessions. So I will put an attendance sheet for my end. I'm going to talk about the new database that we launched just before COVID. So this way you can go through and log your sessions in there as well. I'm hopefully making that easy for you to do as well. And I think that's all my housekeeping stuff. These sessions are mainly held through Zoom, so there's a couple things with the standard presentation that may seem a little awkward or weird for the time being, but just because we're in a different platform. So bear with me as I adapt some small pieces here and there as well. So introduction to NACURH. This first slide really talks about interaction pieces. Like I said, we're usually pretty interactive within these sessions. So feel free to use the chat or Q&A kind of throughout, and I am more than happy to stop as we go. Obviously, we don't have reactions, I don't believe, in here. But this slide is really representative of how our students do engage in NACURH. So they do a lot of virtual things. And over the last year and a half or so, virtual conferences have been the norm for them as well. And so you'll often see some of the students utilizing these as kind of some norms within their spaces. So using the percentage sign for snaps, putting X in the chat for questions, comments, etc., then using different reaction pieces. So for us, it's not super relevant, but it's helpful just to have that context. We usually take a couple moments to do introductions. So if the two of you would like to drop in the chat just what your name, oh, awesome, there's emojis. I haven't played around too much in here yet. But you can feel free to drop in the chat just your name, your pronouns, what institution you're from, if you've advised in the past and how many years you have been advising, if so, or if you're a brand new advisor, that's awesome too. And then a fun fact. So to go through a little bit of this for me, like I said, I work here at CU Boulder. I came to the NACURH region, or the Intermountain region, about 3 years ago now. Before that, I was in the Central Atlantic or the Mid-Atlantic, depending on if you talk student or professional associations, where I've worked in Maryland and in New Jersey. I have been advising for about 7-ish years now. Maybe it's 8, I can't remember. But the fun fact I've been telling my students is I actually joined community council 10 years ago. So it's been a long time that I have been involved in student leadership. And then fun question, we could just do a fun fact. And my favorite one is just that I've driven an ice cream truck that I did not actually use for selling ice cream. There is a story there about a good campus program for Free Cookie Day. And I very much enjoy having had that experience. But if you want to go ahead and drop in chat just kind of those puts for yourself, just so that the two of you can get a little bit to know each other. And then I will keep on moving with this presentation. So for today, for this session, we have 3 main learning outcomes up here. So really getting an understanding of NACURH as an organization. So kind of mission, vision, values. So just kind of what the organization really stands for. A little bit about the structure of NACURH, and then also some information about the services of NACURH. If you've been involved in the organization in the past, a lot of this is going to feel very familiar. And so just kind of hold that. But there have been some changes that have been happening in NACURH, as with any student organization. And so I'll try to highlight some of those as we go, because I think there's just some really interesting facts when we think about the student organization realm as well. Just some sizes here. Cool. So NACURH itself is a 501c3, which means that it's a nonprofit organization that is led by students. So I think that is a really fun fact that they are actually a company and they very much operate that way on the higher levels. So when we think about our campuses, they really just are a student organization within our RHA and NRHH chapters that might exist on our campus, or any other residential student organization that we have. But as you continue to move up and up, they do operate as if they are their own business. With that, of course I move slides, their mission really is to empower, motivate, and equip residence hall-based student leaders with various skills and resources to impact the community. So they really are trying to do that empowerment piece, trying to move students forward. And they do specifically serve residence hall student leaders. And we say that with a caveat of we also have some students that do not live at residence halls, specifically within the National Residence Hall honorary chapters across campus. But there are opportunities for students to still be involved, even if they do not live on campus. But their main focus is residence hall students. Oh, yay, there's more folks. The vision of NACURH, so NACURH really is seeking to create a network of civically engaged students. So at the end of the day, they just want students to really be involved in making a difference in their community and in the world around them. And they want that network. So really trying to build those opportunities for students to connect with each other across campuses is extremely important for them to actually be able to do the work that they're doing. So you'll see some pieces where they're really trying to support programming or operations across the country. But at the end of the day, that networking piece is a core function of what NACURH does in terms of its services. NACURH is represented by the links. So you'll see in the top left-hand corner of the slide, there's a little ribbon with the 3 little NACURH links. A lot of folks will see that and they'll think NRHH or some other organizations. I'll talk more about that later. But those links themselves are actually the kind of icon or symbol or logo of NACURH as a company. Each of the 3 links have a meaning. So they mean caring, dedication, and participation. And together those come to form both NACURH and NRHH. So that's really representative of who they want to be and the relationship that they try to have for our students. NACURH uses the kind of dark, almost royal blue and white as their main or primary colors. So they're very big on marketing. We've had a lot of students that are very passionate about that, that have continued to make the NACURH brand what it is. So some abridged history of NACURH. And so this is helpful just kind of get some context for things. NACURH actually formed really around 1954 was the first time that we had the Northwest Dormitory Conference. So we had 4 institutions that came together to create a conference where they're just talking about issues for residential students. That then turned into a larger conference, and they named themselves ACURH, so the Association of College and University Residence Halls. And then they continued to expand and expand, and they ended up renaming themselves in 1961 to be named NACURH, which is the National Association. So as they continue to expand and grow, they want to make themselves more representative of the entirety of the country. In 1964, NRHH was founded, and NRHH is the National Residence Hall Honorary. So it's an organization that really focuses on recognition and service for our students, but that is an honorary in and of itself. And so that organization was founded and created as a part of NACURH. So NACURH does own NRHH, which they do not own RHA. A fun fact is that they actually created the organization to help with the 501c3s. So that really helps them to remain nonprofit. And really that organization is a huge part of how NACURH manages its corporate status. Throughout the rest of kind of the history of NACURH, they created an office for themselves, which was originally called the NIC, which really housed a lot of information and archives and records. If you are familiar with Kent State at all, Kent State currently hosts the NACURH archives. So that is another fun fact, is they have a lot of old documents and communication from when everything was mailers and in person or on pen and paper. In 1971, they actually formalized their Articles of Incorporation. So to actually continue their corporate status, they're actually incorporated in the state of Oklahoma, which is also a fun fact. In 1972, the logo was established, so those interlocking links. And in 1979, they actually formalized their relationship with ACPA and NACURH. And so you'll notice that NASPA was not one of those organizations. But there is a very strong relationship between NACURH and NACURH. In 1997, the art training, so this session is a part of, was actually established and debuted at a NACURH conference. And NACURH is the South Atlantic Association or affiliate of college and university residence halls. And so that was really where advisor resource training really began. In 1999, we presented it at the first NACURH annual conference, which was also the same year that the OTM database was created. So if you're familiar with OTMs, which are of the month awards, they were created at the same time that art was presented at an annual conference. Going to more recent history, in 2019, we created the new art database, which is super helpful for just tracking who is complete and is able to present art sessions and what ones people still need to attend or go to. And then in 2020, NACURH actually formalized a partnership with NACURH, which took over what was now the NACURH offices. So a lot of the core operative functions in terms of like the store or some records or websites are really hosted by NACURH now. That also is the same year that the new OTM database was created. So you'll see sometimes things are all happening at the same time, which is good in terms of the corporation. I'm going to switch a little bit to talking about the structure of NACURH. So within this structure, and it is very much a hybrid of a student organization and a corporation. So you'll see that theme throughout. And I'll talk about some comparisons between our student associations, so NACURH and its regional affiliates, and then the NACURH entity and the different regional associations for college and university housing officers as well. So within NACURH, there are 8 regions, and so there's lots of acronyms here, and oftentimes people get tripped up on what they mean and what all the letters stand for. But each one does have its own name. The majority of them do still have mascots. NACURH, which is the Intermountain Affiliate, which is our region here that aligns with AIMHO. Actually, I think 2 years ago, removed the monkey as its mascot due to a lot of the just cultural ties and marketing, specifically around our BIPOC students and the negative impact that was having on many of our student leaders. So they've removed that as their mascot and have yet to replace that or find a lasting replacement because temporarily they thought they had one and then chose to remove that moving forward as well. Within these regions, I have a cute little map. So you'll see that many of them are made up of multiple states. NACURH actually is one of the largest regions just in terms of size, but is actually one of the smallest in terms of number of institutions. So being a plains area, and mountainous area, we have a lot of places that just don't have colleges or that have very small institutions. And therefore, we just have fewer members than some other folks. We're also a big travel region, so oftentimes you have to fly to conferences and things when we're in person, which also means those are just a little bit of a higher cost associated for many of our schools. One really interesting thing for me when you compare the professional and student associations is that NACURH actually owns all of the regional affiliates, so they report directly into NACURH structure. Versus when you look at our professional associations, NACURH actually does not own any of the regional associations. And so there's a very different relationship that happens. And you'll see that kind of trickle down to campus level as well, particularly for NRHH chapters. There's a lot more of saying this is how you have to operate compared to our professional associations, where it is much more free form and you kind of get more autonomy as the different orgs. Within the actual structure of the organization itself, there's a couple different levels. So within NACURH itself, there are 4 student leaders that really run the company. So there's the chairperson who acts as the CEO of the company. There's the NACURH associate for operations who acts as the chief operations officer. Then you have the NACURH associate for NRHH who runs all things related to the honorary itself and kind of that aspect of the company. And then the NACURH associate for education, or it's not education anymore. What is the name? I forget what the last new position title is, but it really focuses a lot more on the marketing and pieces and supporting the different more operational components of the organization in conjunction with the associate for operations. They've kind of restructured this over the last few years. They had some pilot positions. So this is an area where they're continuing to grow. Professional staff that support them at the NACURH level. So they have an advisor for this larger group, as well as an advisor specifically for the NRHH organization. Both of those also serve as advisors for the corporate boards that really run the organization as well. Then there's 2 other positions that are really not advisor roles, but they help the core operations. And those are the NACURH conference resource consultant. So they really advise in on a lot of the different conference operations for all of the regional associations and the NACURH annual. And then there's the NACURH art consultant, which is recently renamed from the NACURH art coordinator. And they really are focusing on developing just advisor support across all of NACURH as well. So they very much bring us through now implementing the new art strategic plan that was just published earlier this summer. Then when you look at the regional level, each region has a regional director, a regional associate director for administration and finance, and then a regional associate director for NRHH. And those are often called the DADs. So it's the director and ADs, or really just kind of the big three positions kind of there within the regional structure. So they serve on the NACURH boards, the NACURH NRHH boards, and are really making a lot of voting decisions for the company. In addition to that, each region has somewhere between 2 to 5 coordinating officers. If you can't tell, we really like the number 8. So most boards, and I believe it was required that they can't go over 8 student positions, 1 for each of the regions. And so there's just very funny and silly nuanced things that exist from there. But those coordinating officers focus a lot more on content areas. So in NACURH, we have 1 focused on marketing and technology. We have 1 focused on supporting RHA, 1 focused kind of on the NRHH values, 1 focused on our NCCs, which are our members from our institution within the corporate structure. And I believe those are the other ones we have right now. But they ebb and flow just depending on the need of the organization and what services that regional entity needs to provide for its members. Each of the regions also have different advisor or professional staff positions. So they also have a regional and a regional NRHH advisor, similar to the NACURH structure. And then several regions have regional art coordinators, which is my role, who really help to make sure that advisor training is happening in that region, and kind of moving forward, just more advisor support in general, because we know we have more and more brand new advisors coming into our region and supporting these organizations. And how can we really make sure that they feel ready to advise, that they feel supported in that journey, and not having it be kind of like an old boys club. How are we really welcoming people in, getting them connected, and focusing again on that network piece? Because we know oftentimes where we might have several hall directors on a campus, there might only be 1 person that really is advising an organization. And that becomes tough when you don't have that support system that you might really need. Within the corporate entities as corporate pieces as well, NACURH also has several corporate partnerships and corporate sponsors. So many of you may be familiar with OCM, which is on-campus marketing. They really do a lot of care packages and linens for when students arrive on campus. It also is a huge money generator for a lot of campuses, and it becomes almost like an extra income that could support whether conference operations, if your institution can't afford those. It could be for different programming initiatives, or if you just need some extra money. It has been a really great partner to work with, and supports NACURH as a broader, as well as several campuses as well. NACURH is also a partner. So I mentioned that in the history, but really formalizing that relationship and that shared service piece has been huge in that creating of a partnership there. Similarly with ACPA, and just trying to get more advisor support and professional staff development. And then about 5 years ago or so, NACURH started a relationship with It's On Us to support just awareness around sexual assault and the movement to end sexual assault on college campuses. So that has been a huge kind of advocacy piece for NACURH over the last several years. There's also 2 corporate sponsors, and so with most of these things, there's a lot of semantics here between what those things mean. But 2 of the sponsors that we use, and really this comes down to having pretty much a good discount on their products, is both Guidebook and Zoom. And so Zoom, because NACURH does a lot of virtual business, and Guidebook for when we do in-person conferences, it's really convenient to have that app, as many of us probably remember from in-person days. The next section is really talking about the services of NACURH. So NACURH, first and foremost, has the NACURH Connection, which there's not a slide for, but that is a place that hosts a lot of documents, guides, what used to be affiliation reports that NACURH no longer requires, award bids, so on and so forth, for different campuses to be able to learn about the work that different college campuses are doing, and to be able to really learn from and implement those practices. Once you affiliate with NACURH, you get a login for that, and are able to go through and peruse a lot of those documents. And they did try to digitize a lot of the ones that they still had in paper or on paper when they created this database. The next one is the NACURH store. So this is being housed by NACURH, like I mentioned earlier. This is a great spot to purchase pins, clothing, merchandise, etc. It can be shipped directly to your campus. You can also get it at conferences. So really kind of building out this platform has been great. And if you advise an NRHH chapter, this is still where you would buy the honors cords for graduation, membership pins, gold seals for OTMs or other certificates, so on and so forth. So it's just moved locations, but it is still definitely available, which is awesome as well. And then the honestly biggest service that NACURH and its regional entities provide is the conference experience. And so throughout the year, NACURH offers about 17 conferences annually. So there's one annual conference that is the NACURH annual conference that happens over the summer. It's typically in very late May or early June, but the time frame has changed a little bit just depending on the host institution's availability. And I will also apologize if you start to hear this leaf blower that they just turned on outside of my office. In addition to the NACURH annual conference, there's also 2 regional conferences every year for each of the regional affiliates. So one is in the fall and one is in the spring. The fall conference typically is a leadership conference. So it's a much bigger conference where they do a lot of education sessions. I really try to get students exposed to one another, getting them connected across the region, and learning about their leadership pretty broadly. There's also some business pieces that happen during that conference for example, your national communication coordinator or NACURH communication coordinator, as well as the NRHH representative or NRHH president for your campus might be involved with, which could be award selection, it could be legislation that they're hearing, or just larger conversations about things that impact the region pretty broadly. The conference in the spring is usually the regional business conference, and that is really just strictly focused on business, and is where most of the regional elections do occur. So they really do try to prioritize that to be in person and focus more on just getting things done. Although it is still the same length of time, it is very, very business focused. Throughout these different conferences, some regions have opted with the virtual pieces to have more leadership conferences or adjust kind of the flow of how these things feel. And a big focus or theme that's come up with the virtual conferencing as well is how do we build in more and more wellness opportunities throughout these experiences. Because for many students, it's their first time going to a weekend-long conference. And if it's go, 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 and they're not really giving appropriate time for breaks, that's super challenging. Especially when in person, many of us were up till 2, 3 a.m. just having casual conversations on the side. We can't really do that in a virtual setting, but wanted to make sure we're still prioritizing wellness instead of having just like 14 hours of just straight screen time. At the NACURH annual conference, that again is a national conference. So you have schools from all across the country that come together, and occasionally there are some of the international affiliates or schools that do have RHA or NRHA chapters in different countries that do come to that conference. So it's always super interesting to see who is there and who is showing up. And oftentimes those institutions might come as like a country representative because they're often bringing that back to many different campuses in their country, as opposed to our kind of idea of like every institution has their own delegate or own delegation. They kind of bring it where they can expand it as largely as possible. And several other countries do have their own smaller versions of NACURH as well. Cool. I think that's all of those pieces. Again, the conference piece is really a huge aspect of the services that NACURH provides. But I would also say that a huge part of these services really do come through the regional affiliates. So NACURH overall may have some larger guiding pieces, but they really rely on the regional associations to be supporting on the day-to-day for the different college campuses. So it's always a great place that if you are trying to figure out where to plug students in or get them connected, to definitely start on the regional level first, because oftentimes the NACURH associates or the NACURH executives will refer them back down to the regional affiliates as well. Cool. If you ever want to learn more about NACURH, they do have their website, so it's NACURH.org. And all of the regional affiliates have a website that branches from there as well. So you can also learn more about IACUR as well. Or you can go directly to their website, which is just iacur.nacurh.org. So it is pretty easy to find there as well. There's information about all the people that you could possibly want to contact. There's information just about resources that are available. or if your students just don't know where to get started, that is going to be the primary place as well. Here in about 2 weeks, I think it's like 12 days or so, we'll have the NACURH Regional Leadership Conference, which is a virtual conference. So there's not a host institution this year like we usually have done in the past. And so I know a lot of students and folks are really excited about that. And we'll be presenting more art sessions there as well. And we'll have some virtually kind of following here as well, which I sent out to the advisor network yesterday for NACURH. And I'm happy to share that with you all as well if you want some continuing development outside of that space as well. What I'm going to do is transition here for a second and talk a little bit about the art database. And so let's see if this switches screens. It does. So when you are wanting to get credit for this session, and I recommend doing it pretty much immediately after, or if you want to walk along with me here, you definitely can. So I'm going to put the link for this here in the chat. But I was going to ask you to log in. And so when you log in, I'm going to encourage you to use your personal email address, largely because it will follow you institution to institution, and you don't have to worry about updating your email all of the time, because sometimes that could be very tricky. But this is the new art database that they launched in 2019. And we're still working out some of the bugs just because we haven't really been in person for a lot of that time. But this will give you a lot of information, one, just about the curriculum of art. So it has all of the sessions listed, some descriptions about them. And then there's an experience component. So we encourage folks to obviously have some of the experiential learning that goes along with it. So for each level, there's different numbers of experiential credits that we encourage folks to do so that they can present sessions. And right now, we're still encouraging you to keep track of that yourself. But this database, hopefully in the next couple months, will be fully integrated for the experiential credit piece, which has been the one component they've still been working on developing out. There's also a presenter workshop. And so what this does is at the end of level 1 and level 2, you can attend this workshop, and it teaches you how to present art sessions. It's a pretty casual thing, and you can do it after you complete both levels. You could do it after each level. It really doesn't matter too much either which way, but that will allow you to get access to all of the presentation materials. So I'm going to show you how to claim your milestones. And so that means your experiential credits or your sessions that you've attended. So once you're all logged in, you'll go to claim completed milestones. And oftentimes you might have a session here. So if you've attended one and I enter it before you indicate it, it might show up that you've already completed it, and you can just click claim. Or what I encourage you to do is click to log completed milestones, and you can select the session that you've attended. So for us, it would be level 2, Intro to NACURH. You would put your name, your email, the conference that you attended at, so AIMHO, and then the date that the session was, and you'd click submit. Sometimes this can be finicky. And so what you'll do is once you log it, you'll then go back to claim completed milestones, and you should see it show up. If it doesn't, sometimes it just means you have to try it again. Sometimes it might just mean use a different browser. And sometimes it just is super frustrating and goes a few times. So again, these are things that we're trying out because we're not really sure why that's happening. But worst case, I know I've taken a break sometimes and just put it away and went back to it at a later date and time. Usually before I forgot. So I would try to do it before the end of the conference. I will go ahead and also share here a link in the chat, if I remember where I put it. That is for the attendance document. So I'm just going to ask you to complete this pretty quick. It just really asks for your name, your email, your institution, so that I can go ahead and log the attendance on the back end as well. So this way, if you have already indicated that you completed it, it will align with that. And if I enter it first, it'll show up for you to just be able to claim as well. So that is the purpose of that. And I'll be using the same form throughout the week or the next 2 weeks. So that will continue to be that same avenue. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing. But if there are any questions, things that are on folks' mind that we want to go through, feel free to... That is the lovely wonders of things on the NACURH Drive. let's try this link. That one doesn't work too. Then I will just write down your information and make everyone's lives easier. Does that one work? That is fine. I will just make myself some notes. And then if you all could just put your email in the chat, then I will mark that down here as well. But in the meantime, are there any questions, thoughts that folks have that they would like to ask? Let's see. I saw Nevada, Reno, UCCS, New Mexico. Cool. So like all already affiliated schools. So that is fun and nice. Because I know I've done a lot of conversations with schools that we're exploring affiliation or what structures should look like, so on and so forth. Because unfortunately, but also fortunately, this is very much my jam and what I love to do. So I'm always happy to have conversations around those pieces as well. And I know Jamie and Amber, who are the NACURH advisor and NACURH NRHH advisor, are both happy to support there as well too. Cool. Any questions, etc.? Yeah, Letha, what's up? Yeah, so if you've attended sessions before and they're not showing up in the system, I would say go ahead and just send me an email with them. Part of it is depending on when they were attended. The attendance sheets may not have been submitted, which is also super fun. And so I can do some back-end tracking there. I would also say go ahead and try to log them in the system because sometimes it'll show up immediately as like claim this credit. And so if that happens and you've already done it, I would say no arguments there. But sometimes it is just a matter of, it might be a different email address. Somebody may have made a typo. Kind of there's all sorts of reasons. Because for a while when we were in person and doing pen and paper ones, we would submit the attendance sheets to the art coordinator at the time, and they would have different student employees manually type them. And so oftentimes if people could not read handwriting or mistyped things, that meant that unfortunately things just didn't get aligned correctly for folks. But I'm happy to support any of those needs as well. Cool. And what I'm going to do from here too is I will forward the email that I sent yesterday to all of the advisors throughout the NACURH region to you all as well, because there's some good information in there about the virtual sessions that NACURH is going to be offering at various times over the next 2 months, because they're trying to work through all of the level 1 sessions here before the end of December, just to have those offered. And then you can be able to attend those as well. There's 3 additional sessions that I'll be running throughout the next 2 weeks. So one is tomorrow morning, and then there's 2 more next week. And our goal, again, is to try to get as many people presenter eligible as possible. I know I mentioned that we are working through kind of a revamp to the system, which may involve some curriculum changes, which has happened really one other time in the history of art. And so that's going to lead to a lot of confusion going forward. So we're like, as many folks as we can get through the program this year will be great for us in the long run, so that we don't have people that we're really trying to work through the different changes in the system. And we're really trying to make the program more accessible to folks in the long run, giving more support to the different types of organizations and more development opportunities. So if you do have thoughts or ideas about things you'd like to see happen in art as well, or just for advisors in general, feel free to let me know, because I do serve as a part of that committee. I'm able to bring those concerns, thoughts, ideas, etc., to the larger group, just to make sure that we're doing our best for all of the advisors across NACURH. But if y'all don't have any other questions, that is really everything that I have. If you do have other questions, I'm going to hang out in here for the next little bit of time. So you can feel free to hang back. And there's also the ability for, I think, you to be able to talk directly. So if you would like to share audio or things like that, you can do that. And we can also engage us in dialogue if you do have questions specific to yourself as well. And Lisa, I will figure that out, because if you have done all of the things, I would like you to be able to present so that I am not one of 3 people in our region that can present sessions. Awesome. And Lisa put the session evaluation in the chat as well. So feel free to complete the evaluation for them as well. Awesome. And once y'all are done with that, I will say just have a good rest of your day. Tuesdays are my least favorite day of the week, so I am happy to be able to interact with other folks for a little bit of time and get away from the normal operations of work for an hour or so. But have a good rest of your day, and I hope to see some of y'all the rest of the week.
I just wanted to say hi.
Hi, my friend. I was very sad when you took another job, and I was like, I can't have Marty here with me.
I know. It was the timing, unfortunately.
I know. Oh, I don't fault anybody about it. I was just internally very upset. I was like, but I wanted this one.
I know. You know, I tried. Fuck, I tried twice, but
yeah.
you know, it is what it is. How are you, my friend? How's life?
It's going. I would say I got this role like 2 weeks ago, so we're moving and grooving.
Oh boy.
But it's been just a challenging year, I feel like, everywhere, because coming quote unquote out of COVID has been a challenge, and student involvement and engagement is weird this year, and everything is just challenging, but we're making it through.
Yeah, that's a big mood. I couldn't agree more, honestly.
Yeah.
But I just thought I'd say hi, because I have to now run to our big leadership meeting. And
have fun.
Oh, always. It's an joy. But enjoy. I hope to see you further in the conference.
Yeah, of course. You too.